And we should be live. I'll just give it a minute until I see that you guys are all here. I should get the numbers in a moment. Welcome, herbivore. And yes, I can see the numbers. I can see you. Well, I cannot actually see you, but I can see that you're here. Let me know in the chat if you can hear me properly. We've got about 10 minutes before we start. So if anyone was completely new to me, if you've just clicked on this video for the very first time, if you were watching the replay, and if you wanted to skip the hellos, you could skip the next 10 minutes. And if you don't know whether you're watching the live or the replay, well, it is just 8:20 on the 5th of July 2024. So if it's no longer 5th of July for you, then you're watching a replay. Hi Jag, hi Lethargy, hi Sarah, and Michelle is here, Sandy is here, welcome. Thank you, Sandy. And welcome everyone that just joined. So we've got a few minutes to start, about 9 minutes, I think. Let me flip this camera around so you can see where I am. So I'm in a beautiful park. And it is raining. It's just a few drops, so I'm gonna try to do without the umbrella because it is so windy. It's actually very tricky to have the umbrella with that much wind. And Linda is here. Welcome, Linda. Hi, Julie. Nice to see you here. So we've got 8 minutes before to start. Let me show you the beautiful bench on which I was sat. I don't know who carved it out, but that's nice. Welcome everyone that just joined. So we've got about 8 minutes before to start. Hi Machu, nice to see you here. Let's see who is dedicated to Danny Johnston. Oh no, that's a bit young. Yeah. Hi Ronnie. And Martin is here. Welcome Martin. So we've got 7 minutes. Oh look, people, I'm not the only one in here. The park is not, well, I've chosen the entrance that they cannot close. So I know I'm not gonna get stuck in the park. I've spotted an entrance where you could jump the fence anyway, so we're not gonna get stuck in here. It looks like the Blues Brother, you think? Let me show you again. Hi down, and welcome everyone else that just joined. Oh, the rain is getting a bit stronger, but hopefully if it's just a few drops like this, I'll take the risk. Because it's a bit tricky to have those the rain and the wind in the same time. And Ginny is here. Nice to see you, Ginny. So Ginny is a local. She probably knows the area better than I do. Because it's actually my first time here. I've never been to Bognor, well, until 4 hours ago. I've been to Chelsea though, so that's not far. Not the most exciting seaside resort I've visited, but it's not far. And I've been to Arundel as well, that's not far either, but never been here before. So we've got, let me check, 6 minutes to go. Hi Pauline, nice to see you here. So we're just waiting for everyone to connect. We'll start at past exactly. Hi Catherine, nice to see you here. And hi Simon, drone. So we've got a few minutes before to start. Let me show you the view again. because I don't want you to see the lady behind me quite yet. Don't know if you spotted her yet. Hi JR, welcome. So we are in Hotham Park. It's only a few minutes walk from the seafront. I'm glad you've made it on time as well, Sandy. You can see how windy it is with the flag. It's actually not too bad here, but you'll see once we get to the beach, it's gonna be a bit windy. And Trista is here. Welcome, Trista. Let me check what time it is. 4 minutes to go. Oh, you know, it is windy. And Bognor is meant to be the sunniest town in the UK. Well, I keep reading some different statistics. Some claim that it's actually in the Isle of Wight. Some say that it's now actually Eastbourne. But for many years it was indeed Bognor. And it is July. But hey ho. So we've got 3 minutes. Do we have any newbies? Anyone completely new to me? Let us know in the chat. Oh, I shouldn't have flipped this around. I can't see the chat anymore. When the background is too white, I can't read anymore. I have to go like this, like this. There we go. Because the chat is white on whatever the background is. Hi Mitzi, welcome. Probably the drunkest as well. Well, if it's the only thing to do. I think it probably used to be much more exciting here, like 60 years ago. But yeah. Right, let me check what time it is. 2 minutes. I can't even wear my hat the right way around because it would fly off. So is it pouring down on dark in London? Well, good, at least I'm not missing anything. It was a bit rainy this morning as well, but then it got better when I left. I'll show you, they have a track here for a little train. It's quite cool. You knew it 45 years ago and it wasn't exciting then. Fair enough. Right, let's check the time. And 1 minute to go. Oh no, it's not a beret, it's my normal hat, but the other way around, because I don't want it to fly in the sea. Although I wouldn't mind, I've lost it for about 10 years before. I found it 10 years later in my parents' flat in Tenerife. A mini necropolis railway. Well, hopefully not. I think it's for very, very living kids. Yeah. Some people might not know what the necropolis railway was, and they might think we have a very dark sense of humor in here. Right. And it is officially time to start. So welcome guys, welcome to Bognor Regis. And without further ado, let's flip this camera around and let's go. So I started here because I wanted to show you that girl. Do we know who she is? Well, I should hide the potion, otherwise it's probably too easy. So we've got some amazing sculptures here, after, of course, Alice in the Wonderland characters. I think Alice and the Mad Hatter were first, but now we have a few more. So there is Alice with her potion. So if I wanted to get a bit bigger or a bit smaller, I should try to have a drink, but I'm afraid it's closed. Let's go and take a look at the rabbit. The white rabbit is the best. No, actually the Mad Hatter is amazing as well. There's no, well, as far as I know, there are no links between Alice in the Wonderland and on this park, you know, but technically, I guess we can say there is one. The gentleman that not created Bognor, but created Bognor as seaside resort. His name was Sir Richard Othman. That's why the park is called Othman. He was a hatter when he was young. He was actually a hatter on the Strand in London. Then he became involved in the East India Company. He made a lot of money, became a politician, and started investing into property developing, really. But that could be the link between him and the Mad Hatter. Right, so that's our beautiful white rabbit. The artist is a chainsaw artist. His name is Simon Groves. So that's quite cool. Yes, there are statues of Alice in the Wonderland across the globe. There's a cool one in Guildford as well, but in Guildford there is a link. It's that Lewis Carroll was buried there. Some of you might have been with me on a tour there. Anyway, let's go and see the Mad Hatter. The Mad Hatter is amazing because you can go for a picnic with the Mad Hatter. You actually have a little table and you can sit on a mushroom and have a tea party. Let me show you. He's down that way. There he is. Hi Brian, I'm very good. There is our Mad Hatter with the full table, with the playing card, so you can search for the Queen of Hearts. So the Hatters, you might know, they were known as mad because before to have any plastic or any waterproofing, they used to put a lot of mercury into those hats to make them a bit waterproof. And of course we know now mercury is absolutely terrible for the brain. And some of those Victorian top hats now in museum, they are handled in some biohazards bags because they're so toxic. So of course some of the hatters used to get a bit mad, as they would have said at the time. Look at those little mushrooms, so you can sit on a mushroom and have a picnic in the park. Right, let's go and find the Queen of Hearts. We are all good. For a sec, hopefully we are back now. So here is the Queen of Hearts. She's got a nose clip. What's the problem with the smell? But no, it's not. I didn't try to eat them, but probably. Right, let's go. I hope the signal stays with us. I'm gonna try not to say anything too interesting while we're here because we've just had a little drop. I've lost you for a sec again, so I'm gonna wait a couple of minutes before to say anything too interesting, because yeah, JR, I'm having little drops. I think it could be due to the bad weather. Hopefully it's gonna get much better as back now. So yes, we have hope. Just gonna wait and see if we are definitely back. Oops. Cool, I think we're good now in terms of signal. Finger crossed. So yeah, Richard Autumn, you might, the story of him creating a seaside resort, it might sound a little bit familiar. I'll show you why. It's because of this lady here, Jane Austen. Jane Austen's last novel, Sandytown, was very probably inspired from Bognor and Sir Richard Autumn. If you've not read Sandytown, you might have seen the ITV show. I've got a picture, let me show you. It's about a Georgian gentleman that invests in a seaside resort. He buys a lot of land, and he wants to make it fashionable and invite big people. Well, that sounds very similar to Autumn. So that's exactly what he did. He tried to make it fashionable. He tried to invite the royalty, and he did actually manage to get the Prince of Wales to visit, the future George IV. Sadly, he died before Bognor became Regis, much later on. Sorry, this wind is horrible. I can't use the umbrella, but I can't really get my material too wet. It's just a bit of a nightmare. I apologize. Right. Right. So that's the gentleman that basically created Bognor Regis. I'm gonna have to. Right. I'm just gonna have to put the umbrella away. There's absolutely no chance. The thing is, we might have to try to make it a bit quicker because I don't want to get my phone too wet. Anyway. I do have a property for you in here, so I'll show you. I've kept my tenner with the king. I'm not spending it. I'm keeping it for now. Yeah, I've had my first banknote with the king last week. It's a fairly low, not too low, but it's a small serial number, so I'm keeping it. Yeah. Anyway, if you wanted to move to Bognor, I've got a little flat for you here. I'll show you where. I'll show you the inside. So, it probably needs a new carpet. Oh no, hold on. No, not this one. Unsee what you've just seen. I think it's this one. Yeah. So, oops. Move. So, how much would you pay monthly for a 2-bedroom flat in here? So it's in that little building here. How much do you think you'd pay monthly for that little flat? Hi Emma. Welcome to rainy, windy Bognor. So we're looking for a monthly rent for a 2-bedroom flat. That needs a new carpet as well. How much do you think you'd pay? 2-bedroom. Mike says 550. It's a bit more, Mike. It's a bit more. 700. Sandy, I think you're actually quite spot on, Sandy. Linda, you're not too far either. Let me show you this interesting car. That's quite cool. Rose, you're very, very close as well. Let me show you the answer. JR, yeah, spot on. Let me show you. 1,250 a month. It's much cheaper than London, of course, but not that cheap. In London, for that price, you'd have a lovely bedroom, a large bedroom in a flat share, but you wouldn't have anything for yourself. I'm just gonna have to speed things up a bit, guys, because my phone is getting absolutely soaked. Anyway, so sadly the park, I'm gonna try the umbrella again, I have to. Sadly the park was the place where a lady spent her last lunch. Her name was Patricia Woolard, 1965. She was studying how to be a teacher. She was from Kent originally, but her husband, or ex-husband, lived here, and she was studying teaching here. And one day she came here to collect her stuff at the college. She was studying divinity and pottery, and she came to collect all her pottery and stuff. She jumped on a train, the 4 p.m. towards Victoria. I like this cottage here, that's nice. And very sadly, about just before 5 p.m. at Gatwick Airport, a lady did a terrible discovery on the train. She found the dead lady on board. They didn't even stop the train. They moved people to the next carriage, and then they started their investigation and everything. They didn't have much to go on. So the lady had been stabbed. Her underwear had been pulled down, but there was no more sign of sexual assault. And they did take a few fingerprints and stuff, but they just didn't have much. Very quickly, a suspect came out, a guy called Michael Stefan Gales. He lived in Crawley, so it's about 30 miles from here, quite close to Gatwick. He had been arrested before for sexual assault or flashing ladies on the street, and he actually did attack a lady in the park here. He broke her teeth. He lied on his diary that day. He said he was at work in a factory all day, but actually staff from the factory, they said he left at 1 p.m. And then he did confirm he had left work, but he didn't say he went on that train. There were some eyewitnesses that spotted him at Three Bridges station. So because of all the timings, the murder would have had to happen between Horsham and Three Bridges, really. The poor lady's purse was found on top of a broom, cabinet in Three Bridges, and the rest of her stuff were found in were found in a little stream, the Gatwick stream in Three Bridges as well. Little pause in the story. Now I've got a flat for you to buy. In the building across the street, we've got a 2-bedroom to buy. Let me show you the photos. That's the one with the terrible carpet, the one I showed you by accident. How much would you spend to buy in that building here? So we're looking to buy a 2-bedroom with a terrible carpet. How much do you think that cost? Apologies about the umbrella in the frame, but I kind of have to. So how much do you think that cost to buy? Oh crap. Sorry, it's just the worst weather we can possibly have. Oh, it's a bit more. Dawn, you know what? I think you're quite spot on. Sorry, I'm fighting with the elements. I would show you the answer, but I can't even use my second hand. Right, it's just a bit too much. Hold on, let me show you the answer. Where are we? There we go. So Dawn, well done. Right. So yeah, eventually, to go back to the lady and the murder on the Gatwick train, eventually Gales was... Right, I'm gonna have to take the umbrella off again. Bear with me. there's no way I can keep it. So the lady on the Gatwick train, the gentleman got jailed for a different matter, and 6 months later they had to interview him again in prison. And the police, you know, although they couldn't prove it, they knew it was him. And they did ask him then, they were like, do you hate women? He said yes. And they were like, were you on the train when Pat Willard was murdered? And he looked at them and he said, you know I was. And then eventually he confessed. He had been to Brighton, he had purchased a knife, and on the train he claimed that she led him on, and that snubbed him. So, you know, he always believed that ladies were obviously so attracted by him, and then they snubbed him. So yeah, very sad story, really. And at least they got him. Unfortunately, he was only jailed for 11 months. They tried to claim diminished responsibility because of his mental health, and he actually went on for manslaughter, would you believe, instead of murder. But you know, at least he was jailed. Anyway, so Bognor Regis. I didn't tell you where the Regis came from. I think some of you might know, because we talked about that in my tour about royal dark tales. It's actually George V. So George V, for the ones that don't know, he was a king that is sometimes described as dull. I don't think he was dull, but he was definitely a family man. He was a king that was not extravagant like his dad, Edward VII, or his brother. He was actually the spare. You might know his brother, Prince Victor Albert, is the one that is a Jack the Ripper suspect. Not a very good one, but... his brother actually died of a weird flu that the kids didn't get. Sorry, the rain is quite bad. And he became king, George V, and he had a lot of, all this generation of those generations of monarchs, really, they died of smoking-related disease. So he had a lot of lung issues, and at the time they used to tell you to come to the seaside, you know, for this type of disease. It's actually God, I'm gonna have to try the umbrella again. Sorry, guys, but it's just too wet. It's actually in the. It's just not possible. It's actually. It's in the in 1750, to be precise, that there's a doctor that prescribed sea bathing and stuff for health. He actually said to drink the seawater as well at the time. You know, before that, the aristocracy, they used to go on a tour of Europe, really. But after the French Revolution, some were not really brave enough to go on the continent. So that's how the British seaside became more attractive. And eventually, George V was prescribed to go to the seaside, and he came here to Bognor to recuperate for 3 months after an operation. He felt better, went back to Buckingham Palace or Sandringham, and then the town contacted him because he had spent a bit of time here. They asked him if they could put Regis. The town used to be known as Bognor, and that's it. And allegedly the king couldn't be bothered, and he said, bugger, Bognor. And then the responsible went back to the mayor here, and they were like, yeah, the king said yes. So that's how they ended up with the name Bognor Regis. Now, Regis, for the ones that don't know, it's Latin. It's for, you know what, let's take a little break here under the shelter. Why not? Just a few minutes. Bognor, it's Regis for Regis, I can't speak anymore. Regis, it's of the king. Like in Norfolk, you've got King's Lynn. It's basically the Latin version of kings. So that signifies of the king. And that little story of the bugger Bognor, some of you might remember. Hi, Paul. I might have told you a different version in one of my tours. You might remember I probably told you that George V was murdered. So there's another story that says that the bugger Bognor, it's actually when the king was on his deathbed, and his doctor, Lord Dawson of Penn, told him, yeah, you're fine, sir, you'll soon be able to go and recuperate at Bognor. And the king would have said, bugger Bognor, and that was his last words. Now, we know almost for sure that that version of the story is not true, because his last words were actually, God damn you. Because, yes, the king was murdered. You might want to call it euthanasia. Personally, I would call it murder. What happened is the king was unwell. Lord Dawson of Penn, his physician, had already told the press that the king was going to die, that the king was on his last leg. And, you know, the physician was a man of reputation. So if the king did not die, his reputation would be tarnished. And that night, about 11 p.m., he had already told the Times newspaper to stay up until midnight to wait for the announcement of the death of the king. And at 11 p.m. he gave an injection to his nurse, Nurse Black. 2 injections actually. 1 fatal dose of cocaine and 1 fatal dose of morphia. Nurse Black was very well aware of the consequences. That was regicide, you know, so she refused to do it. So Lord Dawson of Penn, by his own admission, his diaries were published in the 80s, or partially published. He injected the king. And that's when the king saw him coming with the syringes and he said, God damn you. So his last words were not bugger Bognor. Some of you might call it euthanasia, but it's not, because the king, although he was unwell, he was not suffering, and he was not aware. You know, he was perfectly capable of making a decision. According to what the doctor said in his diary, he actually wanted to spare the king a long death, and also he wanted the news to be in the morning newspaper. The Times newspaper had a better reputation than the afternoon ones. But if you start to look closely, sorry, it's just a nightmare. If you start to look closely at the death in the royal family at that point, is the king's sister, Maud of Norway. She was the queen in Norway. She also came to London. She was very well when she came to London, and she died after an injection. Guess who did it? Lord Dawson of Penn. And there was another sibling, same. So I suppose when you are some kind of a serial killer, you know, committing regicide, it's probably the best, the most exciting killing you can do. Apologies about the framing. I know the camera is probably moving everywhere, but I do have to try to keep it as dry as I can. And so yeah, bugger Bognor, it's more likely to have been about giving the Regis title. If it was even said by the king, we don't know if the story is true at all about the bugger Bognor. Oh, you know what? Let's go there in a shelter for a little bit. We can look at the pier from the distance. And by the way, this is Waterloo Place here. There was also a murder here, sadly, 2007, I think it was, a Polish gentleman that was found on a bench. They could tell it was murder, but they never found who did it. he had been beaten up, and they had CCTV cameras of him going into a bank, a Barclays bank, and he got some money out, but they never found the guilty party. Now we'll go and take a look at the pier, but let's have a minute here first. There's one very famous lady that came from Bognor, probably the most famous of all, and I'm sure some of you would have heard of her, Cynthia Payne. She's very famous because she was a party giver, sex parties. She was a brothel keeper in the 70s. And she called herself a party giver. She was already a madame when she was younger. She had started to rent her accommodation to some sex workers. Then she did go into bondage and stuff. She was a bit of a dominatrix, as we would call her today. And eventually she took the lease on a property in Streatham in South London. Now, when she was a dominatrix, she had met some people from high society, let's say, some people from Parliament, and she started to organize those parties in her home in Streatham. She was very organized. She would do them at daytime, lunchtime, so none of the neighbors would suspect anything. Yes, there would be a bit of going in and out of people well dressed, but she said she was a business lady. She said that she had some kind of work conferences, and at midday the neighbors didn't really suspect anything. And actually those parties, so those gentlemen would pay £25. They had to be over 40. She did not accept the youngsters, and they'll be given a luncheon voucher. Now, if you are my age, you might not have heard of the luncheon vouchers. They were a government scheme. They were already out of fashion at the time, so they were little voucher for a lunch. So she would give them that so they could satisfy their appetite. So they would go in. They'll have alcohol, food, tea, porn, and some kind of sex shows as well. And whenever they were ready, they could go upstairs, give the lunch voucher to one of the prostitutes, satisfy their appetite, and then at the end of the night, the prostitutes would give back the lunch vouchers to Cynthia, and that's how she'll pay them. So the funniest story about her, really, it's the vouchers. And eventually the police was tipped off. Let's try to go and face the rain. We can always stop by the pier. So the police was tipped off that something was happening in that home in Streatham, and they decided to investigate. So they would hide in a car for weeks in front of her place. Eventually, one day, they saw a gentleman coming out with bin bags and placed them in the bin. But as they looked a bit closer, it was not a gentleman. No, it was a gentleman, but dressed as a lady. He was actually a former RAF pilot that liked to cross-dress. And they decided to inspect the bins. If she was indeed having sex parties, she should have a lot of condoms and sex toys and all that in the bins. And would you believe, she was actually watching at the window when she saw those guys that looked very much like police taking the bin bags away. She was laughing then, because this type of waste she never placed in the bin. All the used condoms, she used to burn them in the basement. And I'm just laughing because now I've got my shoelaces that's flying away, but I can't tie them because I've got no hands. So I'm just gonna have to be careful not to fall down. And she knew the police was looking into her, but she was very careful, And eventually one day they raided the house. 50 men were in there. Some were literally in the process of having sex when the police entered. One of them even refused to stop. They introduced themselves as the police, and he said, "I don't care who you are, but I'm not stopping now." So the police actually waited until he had done his deed. And you had some vicars. I mean, they were all echelons of high society. The name of those oh, sorry, it's horrible. God, that's what happens when you come to the seaside. I'm gonna have to. Sorry. No. This is just a nightmare. I can't even turn around now. Sorry, I'm literally flying away. Right. Let's cross over and go into the arcade. Ah! Okay, we will manage. Bear with me. Hold on. Oh no. Let me put this away. We're gonna hide into the arcades. Remind me not to come to Sussex again. The London wind is not that bad. Right, so she where were we? Yes, vicars sleeping with ladies upstairs. She was of course arrested. All the neighbors were ever so shocked, and then it was a huge trial. Obviously, and she was a very funny lady. If you don't know her, Google her. There are a lot of interviews of her on YouTube. She was just hilarious. She compared. Oh, I don't know who that belongs to, but let's hide in here. Oh my God, that was intense. So she oh, it's all soaked. So she got arrested. Eventually she was guilty because, well, she was convicted. 18 months in the Holloway prison. Well, it was meant to be 18, but eventually she got out after 6 months. Let me show you the photo. There's a famous photo of her when she got out. One of her customers came to pick her up in a Rolls Royce. Now, people of America, or people of continental Europe, this is not a V for victory or for lunch voucher. This is a very rude gesture in the UK. If you flip your hand the other way around, it could be the V for victory, but this is actually very, very rude. It comes, we believe, from the 100-year war with the French. The English were very good at archery, and the French, when they caught them, they used to cut their fingers off, so they couldn't use their bows anymore. So the English, when they saw the French, they used to go like this to show that they still had their fingers. So that's if it was a V for voucher of victory, she'd go like this. That was actually quite a rude gesture. And guess what? So she got out, and she continued very quietly, smaller parties, but she did continue. And then she had 2 films made after her life. One was actually filmed here because it was her young life, and a second one about her life as a madame. So yeah, very interesting lady. And it's kind of, everyone started to question the sex trade and how it worked, and why was she the only one being judged, because the customers, their names were not even published. Selling your body is not illegal as long as you don't have a pimp. So people started to question the whole, the full system. Anyway, we are now on the pier. I'd like to show you the beach, but it's going to be it looks quiet from here, but I bet the minute we go, it's going to be horrible. The pier, by the way, it's much shorter than it was a few years ago because of a few storms. And every year they have the birdsman competition. Let me show you a photo. The birdsman competition, it's exactly what you expect. It's people dressing up as birds with homemade costumes or wigs and jumping from the pier, trying to fly as much as they can. So that's probably quite fun to watch. And the pier back in the day, let me show you a photo. They used to roller skate on the pier. That seems quite fun as well. They don't look like they are dressed for roller skating, but yeah. To be honest, I think everything was a bit more fun at the time. And if you went, so that's the way I'm going to be going in 20 minutes. If you went straight down, you'll end up at Butlins. Butlins, if you don't know what it is an interesting place. The second one in the UK was here. The first one is, of course, Skegness. Billy Butlins was an entrepreneur, I guess we can say. It's like a huge family adventure seaside resort. Although when it was first created here in the 30s, it was not a place to sleep yet. It was a place only for fun. So mirror maze, slot machines, donkey rides, or there was also a shooting thing, you know, where you could come with your rifle and shoot away. Actually, you know what? Billy Butlins was a bit worried because in the 30s, when he did this shooting range, the targets were actually Nazis' leader. So you'd be shooting Hitler and stuff like that. And after the Dunkirk battle, he was a little worried that if the Nazis were to invade the south coast, the first place they might target would be Butlins, because they might have heard about that. And so yeah, at the time, even the beach area would have been a lot of fun, because you had those donkey rides or those goat carts as well. Let me show you. I think I've got a photo of the goat carts. So that would have been the seafront back in the day. Oh, I forgot to show you. I've just seen a photo I forgot earlier. You know, when we looked at the beautiful Alice in the Wonderland sculptures in the park, well, before that, many years ago, there was a very, very creepy Mickey Mouse. Let me show you how creepy he is. So that was the first wooden sculpture in the park. So you could come and have your selfie. Well, there were not selfies yet, but you could have your photo taken with the creepy Mickey Mouse. They probably didn't find him creepy yet, but I find him creepy. Oh yeah, with those dresses, you probably would have drowned very easily, because if you end up in the water, those dresses would absorb so much water. Ladies could drown in very little water at the time, because I'm gonna try, because I should be sheltered on this side. So there we go, this is the beach. That's unsettling. Yeah, it's a very creepy Mickey Mouse. There we go. I'm guessing the tide is fairly high at the moment. I think it goes quite far out when the tide is low. So pebbles. Well, when the tide is low, I'm guessing at some point it's kind of sandy, because at the time back in the day they had those kind of carts, you know, those pedaling carts and stuff. So I guess that was at low tide. Yes, you know what, here in Bognor, it was only in 1899 that ladies and men could swim together. Before that, it was very much separate, but their swimming costumes were not exactly very sexy. And you know, you had those bathing machines. So you know, you'd have those big wooden carts, so you didn't have to expose yourself for anyone to see what's going in the sea. Oh, it looks like New Jersey, and that's cool. Perfect day for the beach, says Terry. Yes. Oh, I'm not gonna go too far, the wind is taking me away again from here. But yeah, it's not, I wouldn't mind a swim actually. I like when it's a bit wavy. and when the tide is in, so you have a bit of deepness in the water. Oh, you lived in a beach house. Oh, amazing. Cool. Anyway, guys, that's gonna be the end of the tour. Bear with me, yeah. So let me know in the chat if you have any easy questions, because again, I don't know everything. I've done my homework, but it's my first time here. So see the pier, don't go very far anymore. It was much longer once, but they had a couple of storms, like in Skegness. Some of you might have been with me in Skegness, and exactly the same thing happened. The pier was cut short, although in Skegness it was cut by a ship as well. So cool. Thank you for coming tonight, guys, and thank you for bearing with me in the horrible wind and rain. Let me know in the chat if you have any questions before we go. Thank you very much, Linda. If any of you drop me a little tip on PayPal or buy me a coffee, it's very much appreciated. It's thanks to your generosity that I can keep going and do research for new tours and all that. And if you want to see, thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Pauline. How far is London from Bognor? An hour and 46 minutes from here to London Victoria. Straight train. So that's the very train with the Gatwick murder. And I think it's about 56 miles. I think I've read that. Yeah. Cool. Thank you very much for coming today, guys. Next weekend we're heading back to I think this is a nightclub, or was a nightclub. Next weekend we're heading back to Brompton Cemetery. So that's on Sunday. So hopefully you can join me for that one. And the week after we're going to Southern-on-Sea, where we have quite a few murders as well on the seaside. Thanks, Linda. Thanks everyone for bearing with me with the little signal issue at the beginning and the crazy winds. Cool. Have a great morning, great evening, whatever time it is for you, wherever you are in the world. And I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.